Welcome, bienvenidos, to the Charlotte FC podcast. I am Nic Finelli, and today on the show I have Charlotte FC Assistant General Manager Bobby Belair, who works day-to-day with GM Zoran Krneta on first-team player personnel as well as construction of Crown Legacy, building the talent and depth for this club. Bobby, a native of the Carolinas, played college soccer at Brown and Clemson before transitioning to coaching and administrative side of soccer after some injuries. While at Clemson, he was a graduate assistant coach under Mike Noonan, who he followed from his playing days at Brown. He got a break and was hired to work as the academy administrator for the newly named Atlanta United franchise in 2016. It didn't take long for Bobby to get to the player personnel side of things, learning under Carlos Bocanegra, technical director at Atlanta United. He made the jump to Charlotte shortly after and has been part of the club since it was minted back in 2021 and has moved forward with the team as it has grown. I hope you enjoy listening and learning about Bobby Belair. It's time for the Charlotte FC podcast. All right, so the first thing we always do is have the guest introduce himself, elevator pitch, name, where you're from, or what you call hometown, and then how would you describe yourself to someone else if you're in an elevator, just introducing yourself.
Okay, great. So my name is Bobby Belair. I'm the assistant general manager here at Charlotte FC. I am from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and I would describe myself as a competitor, a family-focused person, and someone who cares deeply about this club.
Cool. Well, welcome. You have a history as a soccer player, a sockisty, as you mentioned in Myrtle Beach area, and then also going to Brown and then transferring to Clemson.
Yeah.
And then working in Atlanta.
Yep.
And now here, if you think long ago, what caught the soccer bug for you? What caught the football bug?
Yeah. So I grew up in a family with two siblings. Both my parents were athletes growing up. So we played every sport under the sun when we were growing up. And soccer was just something that I think it allowed me to let my energy out. And, I remember telling my parents early on, they basically put American football in the fall in the South and everything else in the spring. So I played baseball, golf, soccer, and I had to choose eventually when you get to high school. And I remember saying, I feel like it'd be a waste of my athleticism or my energy if I didn't play soccer. And so I decided to go with soccer, and then I was lucky enough to get a scholarship. Well, not a scholarship. I was recruited. And then ended up going to Brown. I was committed to South Carolina originally on a scholarship.
With Mark Burson?
Yeah, with Mark Burson,
cool.
Yeah. And then when Brown came knocking, I went on a visit and decided that I couldn't pass up the educational opportunity. And they were a really good program as well. Mm-hmm. So I switched my allegiance and went to Brown. Funny enough, ended up playing South Carolina a couple of times when I was at Brown.
Oh, nice.
And then finished 4 years at Brown, had 2 years of medical redshirt. So I was able to go play in grad school 2 more years at Clemson.
Wow.
Reunited with Mike Noonan, who recruited me originally to go to Brown.
That's pretty awesome. Now, you talk about injuries and things like that. So as a player, you know what happens and how some people don't recover from injuries and things like that. Do you look at that when you're in this general manager role and being like, okay, I know what injuries are like. Is this going to be the same person that we either wanted earlier or we've been scouting for a while? Now they've had an injury. Like, how do you assess and go about doing that?
Yeah, no, it's definitely a part of the process is checking players' injury histories. And then we obviously do a very detailed medical process and examinations when we sign new players. I think it comes down to the type of injury and when the injury occurs for the athlete. So, for instance, one example is one of our players on Crown Legacy tore his ACL while he was training with the Ecuadorian national team this past year. And he was on loan with a buy option. And because he's so young, even though he tore his ACL, we still wanted to take the buy option. And I think everybody was shocked. The Ecuadorian Federation called me to thank us and say that, we never expected the club to take on that responsibility of rehabbing. So I think it just depends on when the player gets hurt, what type of injury it is, and knowing more about the player's mentality. So with this boy, we felt completely comfortable that he would recover in full. But injuries are a thing of the game that we don't like, and no one wishes for anyone to get injured. And so all you can do is trust your medical staff that you have and to get all the information that you can and then make the best decision as possible.
So going back to, you've had the injuries. You tore your ACL also?
Yeah, twice.
Yeah, twice. So kind of was your future? Were you looking at a future of playing professionally? Was that something on your radar? And then all of a sudden crashing down type thing?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I would have to say it would have been a long shot for me to make it in MLS. And I think things work out for the reasons at times, right? I probably would have been fighting to maybe stay on an MLS contract or been fighting in USL. So I think where I ended up is a good place. But yeah, it was disappointing and something that, I had to work through for a while.
So I read as you were at Clemson, you kind of were a volunteer, kind of assistant coach because you had already kind of seen like the writing is on there. How did that experience segue you into you working for Atlanta and working with Carlos?
Yeah. So I would say that was like my first real job. I worked in the summers, in college, and I worked for my dad growing up. But that was my first real job. It was my last semester at Clemson being a grad student, and I was fully out of the fall of my last season. So it really helped me just to get like your typical little office work habits and, emails and that sort of thing.
Right.
I was able to run his camp. So, organization and that's those sort of skills that really helped. The alumni golf tournament, things like that go on in the springtime.
Yeah.
And then I had another job. I took my first real job after Clemson. And I was there for 5 months working for Octagon in sports marketing.
Yeah.
And then my coach called me and he said, Bobby, I know you're enjoying it. We would stay in touch, but I think I have something that you're going to like a little bit more. And he just talked about Atlanta United starting, and one of the former alums from Brown was Darren Eales, the president there at the time. And so through connections was able to get an interview, and they asked me to do a presentation. So did a presentation on the expansion draft, how Orlando and New York City had done the year before. And then I joined Atlanta after 5 months working, moved up to Connecticut and then moved back down to Atlanta. And then I was just basically doing everything under the sun, early days, expansion club, working underneath Carlos. Yeah, it was great experience.
Were you nervous about that kind of presentation? Because like that could have been a big deal, which it turned out to be.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I probably was nervous at the time, but when you're doing something that like you really like and you're into, and it was like easy to research these things for me, I was enjoying doing it. So I wouldn't say I was like felt underqualified or didn't know what I was doing. So yeah, like anything, you're always like a little bit
right.
Yeah,
but you were confident enough. Like, hey, I'm prepared. I did a good job, and hopefully
exactly.
they'll like what I did.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Now, did working at Atlanta help you start to see, I want to do bigger things with this? Because obviously they're asking you about draft and player personnel, which as a player and also watching players, you gain a different insight than someone who's not, always in that. Did you kind of see from there, like, hey, I want to take this to the next level, like general manager is where I'd like to go? Yeah,
I would say that it was working for Atlanta. It was my first professional club experience. So growing up and playing soccer, we didn't have MLS academies around. And I didn't really, my family wasn't big into soccer, so I wasn't like I was going to professional soccer games and really understanding the culture and what it really meant to be at a pro club. So yeah, it was eye-opening to answer your question, and it really helped me realize that, yeah, this could be a full career for me. And what I really liked about the job was just what you said, becoming a general manager one day and leading an organization from the sporting side. Did I think that I would get this close so fast? No. But it's been, both clubs have been super helpful for my growth, and thankful, especially to Charlotte for the last few years, how much opportunity that I've been given to help this club grow. And yeah, so really fortunate.
Yeah. I mean, you've had basically 3 different titles in 4 years. You've been moving up and doing different things. And a lot of it's because of restructuring. So how much of when you first started to help assemble the squad that first started and now, like how much of that job is what you're doing now?
Yeah. So I think coming from Atlanta, my expertise was in the salary cap. I really knew the rules, and in scouting. So that's primarily where I was helping. I also understood the administration, the operations side. So player relocations and how the league worked, how MLS worked. So I was able to kind of oversee the operational side and then help with the salary cap piece and also with scouting. I really knew the college game as well. And so we put a big emphasis on finding domestic players through the college draft, which has done really well for us. And then, yeah, little by little, the experiences that I've had here at Charlotte, started traveling internationally to go, visit clubs, meet with agents and scout games, kind of ping-ponging trips with Zoran. He's going there, I'm going here, or I'm here, he's there.
Now, can I?
Yeah, you
do
can.
you only go to those places when your scouts say like, "Hey, you got to see this person, or you got to go to this club and watch them," or is it kind of like you have certain people on your radar and you're like, "I'm going to see them"?
Yeah, I think it's timing of the year. So definitely during transfer windows, we could be going anywhere at any time, just because maybe we think it's interesting to be in this market, to be around for games, but also to meet with agents. And that's Zoran's primary, is to go around and meet with people and make sure we understand the markets, have all the information about what's going on. Mm-hmm. And I would say I'm typically more end stage scouting. So the scouts have watched this player so many times, and I'm going to go see a particular match of his live and maybe meet the player or meet the agent afterwards as well.
So what are you looking for in that instance? I'm guessing a lot is culture. Do they fit in with what's going on here?
Correct. Yeah. And then you pick up on a lot of little habits. Sometimes watching the warm up is more telling than watching the match itself. You see what the player's like, his mentality, his character, and seeing that live, and even just seeing the way they move, the way they touch the ball, pass the ball is way more interesting live than on video.
Yeah.
So after COVID, we made an emphasis, a point to make sure we watched every player that we signed live before signing them.
And talking to them.
Yeah, exactly. Which is standard practice.
Right,
it was just weird when we first started.
And then also in the relocation things, players come here, and we've had several players who have come internationally. And I guess part of what most clubs try to do is get them on that green card, or basically so they're off the international.
Yeah.
Is that like an automatic push for everybody you've kind of bring over, and it's just a matter of time?
We've had different presidents who have different international policies, so it's been tricky to navigate. And not everyone do we apply for a green card for. You have to, basically the rules are you have to make a certain amount of money, you have to have a certain amount of status, you have to have a lot of media coverage around the player. So, you're basically trying to pitch the U.S. government that this player is extraordinary and he needs to become an American.
Nice.
So you can't do it for everybody.
Okay, that makes sense. And then as far as the relocation, just for instance, our latest was Zaha, bringing his family over and things like that. And I know some players don't have their families or people come over, but you are kind of leaning in that charge too, right? You're like, here's the people that are helping you get settled. Here's places, that family can live. Is that part of what you do?
Yeah, I oversee the team, but the team does all the work, and everything is run smoothly. We basically just helped the first couple of years of the club. We built the processes, and then they take charge and do everything else.
Right.
And the team's been great, and families are happy when they come.
Now, I didn't ask you this. I should have asked earlier. Like, how did you get the Charlotte FC call, or did you make the call and say, "Hey, I know y'all are starting. I'd like to do this"?
Yeah, I was kind of stalling out in Atlanta. It felt people were getting hired above me in roles that I thought that maybe I could achieve or attain, and so reluctantly started looking elsewhere, and just through a couple of contacts was able to get an interview. They flew me up and back on the same day. This was right before COVID hit, and I again did another presentation, and at the time it was with the people that were here, and I went to the Panther Stadium, met a bunch of people, did the presentation, spent the day with them, went to lunch, and then flew back. And I think I was kind of late in the process. They had already interviewed a lot of other people, and luckily they chose me.
Yeah, sometimes being the last is because you got everybody else to compare to, and you're like, all right, well, he's better than all these guys. So yeah, I like either being first or last.
First or last, yeah.
You don't want to be in the middle. Since you said a lot about, or I didn't say you said but your credentials show that you understand the salary cap and how they work. The senior roster budgets for 20 players, I think, is around $5.47 million, right? Mm-hmm. So you got to work with that. You also have to work with GAM and TAM. Can you explain that to people who don't understand it?
Yeah. So basically how we work, how you can think about it is you have the salary cap. It's around let's call it 5.4 for this year. And then the amount that you get in GAM and TAM each year can just be added to that total. Because what you're doing with GAM and TAM is, say a player is making $1 million salary, you just have to use $400,000 to buy the player below the maximum budget charge, right? So you could think of it as just additional salary cap. Mm-hmm. Now, how we use it and apply it will be different, but so essentially we get around $10 million to $12 million the past 3 years in total salary budget, including GAM and TAM. So that's the easiest way to think about it.
And then is it fluid each year in that you might be bringing in a player, so you need more of that money and you allocate different, maybe there's allowances a little bit closer to the line than you had before? Is that kind of part of it?
It's a big puzzle, and you're kind of pulling around, moving things. You're thinking about next year. And what we've tried to do over these past 3 seasons is to not put ourselves in an unflexible position. We wanted to remain flexible, to give ourselves a chance to be in the playoffs every year. And then ultimately by year 3, we wanted to be in a position to start competing for trophies. And we were realistic that it's a tough league now. When we came in, it was different than when Atlanta came in. And that's not to take anything away from anyone, but it's really hard to be good in year 1. So we wanted to be consistent. And then when the time was right, when the club was ready, to start bringing in some firepower like we did with Zaha.
So now it's twice a year, but each club can now kind of designate which way they want to go with their rostering. Is that you and Zoran just talking about, like, what are we looking at now versus, it's good that you all have 6 months, whereas before it's like you had to make a designation and then you didn't know how long that was going to last. So now you get to do it for 6 months. Does that help in you all and how you plan for this summer transfer and then for after?
Yeah, it does help. It doesn't quite help that we're changing rules all the time, it seems, in MLS, but we're on the forefront of it. And so myself, Zoran, Dean, and Mr. Tepper will meet and we go through the strategy together. There's others that are involved, of course, as well. But in that final meeting is typically us 4 discussing everything. And this is where we feel comfortable from where our roster was this year and to where we want the roster to get to. This was giving us the best chance to go with 2 DP, 4 U22s, get an extra $1 million of GAM for this 6 months, and then we'll see what happens in the summer. But gives us flexibility to go either way in the summer. And
was that because you felt like there was more players or personnel that you could get that were at a different, like not the U22 or more U22s that you felt would grow the club, because it is a young club still and we don't necessarily have the whole academy thing, full blast yet?
Yeah, and also the summer transfer window is just a much better window to do business in. We've tried to push the league to move the summer window back to match Europe, but then it only allows for maybe 6 games in the end of the regular season for MLS. So teams don't really like that. They want to have their key players playing longer, but we're looking at it from a more long-term view where you want to get the best players into the league.
Right.
So hopefully with some more potential rule changes, we'll be able to match the rest of the world with the transfer windows. But that summer one is huge for particularly getting DPs.
Is there, in your leadership approach, is there someone you've kind of modeled after and you looked at like, oh, I like the way this person's doing things? Like, how did you know how to know what to do?
Yeah. I think I've, been fortunate to always be thrust, or I've put myself in leadership positions in all my sports. When I was a kid, growing up, I've always been a captain. I've played high school basketball all the way through, and was soccer, my club team, and then high school team. In college, same thing, kind of just that's just part of my nature, I would say. But for sure, learn from so many people across the way. Like to read leadership type books or personal development books, and you pick up things here and there. My coach in college was a big influence on me, Mike Noonan at Clemson. He recruited me to go to Brown originally.
Right.
So I'd have to give a lot of credit to him as well. My family, just being raised with good values and morals, I think is huge. So I'm not sure if there's like a particular person I could point to, but you take so much from people that you meet. And then you also learn a lot from what not to do, how not to do things, and sometimes those are the ones that stick a little bit more.
Right. Make sure. Now, the relationship that you have with Zoran, like, how would you describe that, and what have you learned from being in that?
I give Zoran so much credit for my development over the past few years. We are like the perfect yin and yang, right? He relies on me for a lot of things, and I rely on him for a lot of things, and we balance each other out. I think my knowledge of the rules in MLS, with his international network and all the contacts that he has, and I think I've really seen Zoran grow a lot more confident in the past couple of years in his role. It wasn't easy coming over as a foreign sporting director. I think, the media particularly always says the foreign sporting directors don't work. So he's had to work at it, and we've had our ups and downs, but we've always stuck together and trusted each other. And I think his belief in me has helped me grow in confidence in my role, and his willingness to let me go out and go to meetings and stuff all around the world. So yeah, we work really well together, and we enjoy it.
Now, we all know the season is long. It's probably even longer for you because there's certain windows that it's really intense. Yeah. But then also when things are not happening on the pitch, you're probably in full force. So do you ever get a break?
Yeah, it's funny. We were talking about how was your off season? And for Zoran and myself and a few others, like, we don't really get an off season. That's our end season. Mm-hmm. And then when everyone else is in season, you're still in it and working hard. So we'll try to take some time, around after the transfer windows is a good time to maybe just get away for a few days. I'm still in the phase of life where I have a bunch of weddings. So I'll try to, it's important for me to still enjoy some of life. So we'll try to go to weddings, and that's the only time I'll take off for a game.
Yeah. What would you say has been like the toughest decisions you've had to make in your position? You can give an example too, if it won't.
Yeah. And I would say that I'm in my role probably more so giving my opinion on the big decisions. Mm-hmm. But, obviously firing a coach is always really, really tough. Really any decision around any staff, if you have to let staff go at the end of the season, or players, deciding if you're going to keep players or let them go, it's always tough because there's a human side that's difficult no matter if things are working out or not. You still invested so much time together to try to make it right, to try to make it work and try to make it right. So I would probably say, making decisions around staff and players is the most difficult thing in our roles.
Now, what's your big kind of glorious moments, things you're like, yes, I really did it?
Well, I think the beat Miami at home last year to get into or 2 years ago to get into the knockout round was really good because it was such a tough year. Mm-hmm. Losing Anton and just the season that we had, so many ups and downs, drop points, and then finally getting to the end and doing it against probably the best team at that time was special. Last year, again, making playoffs for a second consecutive year was nice. I think the Zaha signing was great too. Finally getting a DP. We had been chasing a big name for a while. I think it was very public, the names that we were going after. So getting that one across the line, and then when you see him make an impact immediately, it makes you feel good.
Yeah. Did that already open up doors for you all that you weren't having before? Just this quick impact that he's had so far? Yeah, I think even before his impact, so many more agents were reaching out and players were reaching out to express their interest in coming to MLS one day and specifically to come to Charlotte FC. I think signing, we were looking at some of the data on social media and how much impact he had surprised us all. Yeah. So when you're working with players and learning about them, what's really the most important thing you look for in that person? Probably trying to get down to the core of their character, mm-hmm. of who they are as a person and what they're about, what really matters to them. And then you find out about their mentality too, and watching them and how they act and how they interact with other people. And I think that the one thing that we could say we've done a really good job at over the course of the last few years is signing good people. Mm-hmm. And so I think coupling that with signing superb players is obviously the goal. And I think we're getting there. So you talk about getting down to the core. Like, how would you do that? If I was a prospective player, what would you be trying to get out of me? It's honestly similar questions to what you're asking. You know, what things about your life, about your past, where you are now, where you see yourself going, what's important to you, what do you like outside of soccer, mm-hmm. and then you kind of just go off of that, little questions here and there. Their family is typically the key thing that you're talking about, right? Where they came from and what's important to them. Yeah, and kind of what's on their plate as far as, because a lot of times, you look at players or even just people at certain times in their career, and you can tell afterward, like, oh, they had all this going on and I didn't even know about it. Yeah. And they were dealing with all that at the same time. Like a lot of people, last year didn't understand all the stuff that was going on with Christian and just, with the coach, but also dealing with the injury and things like that and coming back from that and just the struggles of that. Yeah. And I think it makes a difference. And, you saw it totally with his play last year. But it's like, you didn't know that hindsight. You didn't know that he was, that it was serious back surgery in the off season. Right. Yeah. And that kind of stuff really impacts things. Yeah. So that's interesting. Yeah. What, if you could change anything about the role and how people perceive this role, what would you say?
I wish we could be a little bit more open. I wish we could, get our side of things out there a little bit more. I think that's just not the nature of the sport, and in general, you have to keep things to your chest to be effective. If everything's out in the open, then your negotiating power goes down.
Right.
Something that I would like to change. Yeah, maybe like a little bit more FaceTime with some of the fans when they're disgruntled. Like, would have no problem with fans being disgruntled or pointing the finger at the front office. Everyone's allowed to have their opinion. But I do think that when you see a fan or you connect with someone outside and they get to hear from you directly, sometimes it would change the narrative. Like anything, most of what you see and read and hear is not directly from the source. It's from someone else who's writing it. And so things can get a little bit misconstrued, but we have to have thick skin in this role for sure. And hopefully there's going to be one day that, it won't be Zoran's name that they're pointing at. Maybe it'll be mine. And I'll have to deal with it. But I think that we could be a little bit more, figure out a way to be a little bit more public facing at times.
What really gets you charged up in this position? Is it when you get a signing, or is it when you find a player that maybe like this person really turned out to be something that nobody else knew, but we knew, kind of thing?
I think it's when the team wins. Yeah, when the team wins. And yeah, of course, we get charged up about a signing, but and how that player is going to fit into the team. And then you get to go out and watch them train and see how they perform. But when the team, there's nothing, we compete. We want to build the best team overall. So I wouldn't say it's about one individual. It's about how the team collectively fits together and how they perform week to week. So Zoran and I are both pretty intense during games. Like we want to win. We are fierce about that. So there's nothing better than, especially after beating Atlanta United at home in your home opener, and it's against your old club. So it was special on the weekend.
Yeah, that is cool. Yeah. Are you working when you're watching? For instance, are you entertaining or bringing in someone saying, "Hey, come watch this team. You could be a part of this." Is that part of what you do during a match, or is it just kind of vary?
Yeah, it's mostly you have agents or people visiting the club that, maybe they want to get to know more about MLS or about the club, and you're hosting them pregame and postgame. But during the game, I'm locked in, and try to evaluate, and so that you can always go back and remember, because we do have to make some big decisions at the end of each year.
Yeah. What do you feel about the long-term future of the sport, especially in the United States, with all this coming, not just MLS, but just in general? What are you thinking of this?
Super excited. I remember when I was growing up, I played soccer and I loved soccer, but did I watch that much soccer? Not really. It wasn't really that popular to be on TV all the time. And so now you see kids and they're soccer crazy. They that's all they think about. That's all they want to watch. So I think just in the long term, the generational, if you look down the line, it's just going to continue to be more and more popular. Kids are going to get better and better. Our coaches from the young age are getting better and better. And you see that with the players that are moving from America to Europe, or even just being better in this league in MLS. So I think just the growth, like that really excites me, is how the American players getting better, our league then in turn gets better, and then hopefully that'll push our federation and U.S. soccer to be better. Yeah. So it's great. It's a good time to be a part of the game.
So how do you see the sport, the actual competition evolving? What do you like about it? What don't you like?
Yeah. Look, I'm in support of trying to move to the fall spring, matching the rest of the world, and so that we can, I think that'll push our league to be the best that it could possibly be. And that's what I think MLS is tasked with, is every club, while we're competitors, we all try to think of ideas and things that will push the league forward. The owners are in it together, right? It's a single entity structure, the league. So everyone wants the league to get better while we all want to win at the same time. So it's kind of interesting, but I think that's what everyone's after.
Do you think anywhere in the future they will dramatically increase the salary cap and the amounts? Because a lot of times that is some of the barriers from getting the players more in their prime, or ones that are coming up that might be a great fit for MLS, but they end up going somewhere else because just the money's simply not there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, the owners are still investing a lot, right? Because you can invest in the 3DPs and the U22. So transfer fees are still being spend at a high level. I think what everyone's looking for is, can we get to some system where the floor is higher and the ceiling is higher so that teams can then spend at a wider range somewhere in between.
Right.
Because it's, it's great to have 3 really amazing superstar players, but you really need the full meat of the team to be better. And so I think, if we can get to the point where the minimum you could spend is 20 million or 15, even just 15 million, right?
Yeah.
And reduce the regulations of how you sign players and just let us sign, as many players as, or however we would want to split up their salaries and transfer fees. So that's what limits us. And then I also think that it would make the American players get a bigger chunk of the pie. I think that there's a few that or it's been voiced that they're disgruntled because they feel they get overlooked because international players come in and get signed to a higher wage.
Right.
So I think that would help the American player as well.
Now, how much you said you meet with Tepper on player personnel, specifically, sure, dealing with the money part.
Yeah.
How much leeway does he have? How much is it, hey, I'm listening, and he gives you like, well, this is all I can do, or something like that? Does he give you a budget in a way, saying this is the most I can deal with? Yeah,
we typically start with a budget, and then, if there's things that come up in between, we'll jump on a call with them and present and explain why. Everything's always linked back to the overall strategy. So he always wants us to make sure that everything we're doing, our decision making, is linked to the strategy. We have various processes now that we undergo for every player signing. We're using a lot of physical data, a lot of data in general, and Dave thinks like that. So it was a good way for us to move forward. So our data and analytics department is built out. Scouting has always been a big emphasis, the number of scouts we have. So all these things go into it, but I would say, we typically have in mind what we're planning to do for the year and then continue to meet throughout it with updates. And the transfer window can get pretty wild at times. A lot of meetings.
It's stoppage time.
Do you have music that we might hear when you enter or leave a room?
Ooh, myself. So I'm a big classic rock guy. Yeah. So I would probably say, and I try to bring good positive energy everywhere I go. So I would say Blue Sky by the Allman Brothers Band.
Okay, cool. Do you have any regular personal rituals that you just do every day, or kind of regularly, personal, family, or even work stuff?
Yeah. Stay active has been a big one, especially for this year. I've been a little bit slack the past couple of years, so I'm getting back in the gym consistently, and I love to play golf.
Do you do this gym?
I do. I use this gym in the mornings.
That's nice.
Yeah,
That's
it's
good.
nice.
And you golf?
I love to play golf. Yeah.
Okay. Is that a new thing or just?
No, Myrtle Beach. Being from there, I was lucky enough to grow up with it and professional as a PGA teacher.
Oh, nice.
So we come from a good golf family, and I love to play.
Oh, good. It was a good area for that. I know I was just in the Northeast, and they're counting the days because they can't golf yet because nothing's open.
We can play year round.
Right. Do you have a favorite unplugged activity? Something that just doesn't involve anything technical? Yeah.
To be honest, I don't mind doing yard work. I like just to be outside, maybe put some headphones on, and you can kind of go into your own little world. Grew up doing yard work for my dad, and so it kind of takes me back a little bit.
Are you very tidy with all your things? If I go by and see your yard, could I tell that you did it, or does it look like a professional?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
I'm okay, but I would say that if I probably don't have enough time to do it as regularly as I would like.
Or as well as you want to do it, right? Or get all the equipment.
But I refuse to pay someone to do it. I have to do it myself.
Yeah. Do you have a go-to snack while watching a match?
Snack. I like a bowl of popcorn.
Yeah.
Just something light like that.
Popcorn is the most popular thing for soccer players.
I like popcorn.
No flavored or anything, just regular?
I like just regular butter.
Yeah. Okay. What design impresses you more, interior design or exterior?
Exterior for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Admittedly, my interior decorations of my house is only thanks to my mom. She's a really good painter. So I've taken a lot of her paintings and I just hang them up on my walls. Otherwise, I wouldn't know what to do. What kind of style does she paint? She's really good. She does acrylic. She does a lot of landscapes. So I have pictures of, she painted me, my sister walking on the beach. Oh, wow. With an ocean scene. She just took a picture and then paints from that. That's nice. But exterior stuff, architecture blows my mind. And how especially like ancient stuff. You
Mm-hmm.
go when you travel in Europe and you see these churches and buildings. It's like, how did these people even think about doing that, let alone do it? So I would say exterior.
And we know just from you talking, you would say, of course, interior, because you're trying to get the interior of the people and understanding them.
Yeah.
So that goes without saying.
Yeah.
What recharges you? I know we talked about you don't really get a break. You get to go to these weddings, but what really recharges you to be like, all right, I'm ready to start again?
Probably the beach. Yeah, like spending 2 days at the beach and being in the ocean, sitting out in the sun, relaxing is what I like to do. Being from the beach, it's, I don't get to spend as much time there as I would like to. So I think that's like where I could go, and that would be like a vacation. Otherwise, I would say the golf course.
Okay.
If I could spend an afternoon out golfing, then
So like go to Pebble Beach, because then you could golf there and then be on the coast
That's
there.
right.
Maybe, I guess we'll play San Diego next year. You can do that.
That's right, yeah.
What position would you like to play if you were in today's MLS? Because I know you played, and sometimes people want to choose the same one, or they're like, nope, I would be better for this.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I played as a number 10 growing up and then as a 9 in college.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'd probably would say the number 6 position.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I was good enough to be a number 9 in this league. And I always thought like maybe I would have been a better center back.
Yeah.
But I would not want to defend the strikers and the wingers in this league. So I'll say number 6.
Okay. All right. That's cool. Well, thanks. Appreciate your time.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Nick. Really appreciate it.
No problem.
That was nice.
Good. Again, thanks for listening to another episode of the Charlotte FC podcast, where we bring you the fascinating people who work for and around Charlotte FC and the world of football. The Charlotte FC podcast is edited and produced by me, Nic Finelli, and Eli Finelli. Please help us out and share this episode with others. 5 stars, and follow CLTFC podcast on Instagram, X, and YouTube. Until next time, enjoy the day.